How to have a successful conversation with anyone. A lot of advice I see online is quite surface level. It'll give you phrases and things you can say to push a conversation along. But if you're like me, that's not enough. You need to be shown things on a deep level in order for that understanding to really kick in and make a real difference. So today I'm going to be teaching this core principle of conversation, which I've figured out the hard way, which is that in order for a successful conversation to come about, it's you that needs to bring balance to that conversation. You need to do this by analyzing the type of person that you're talking to and then become the opposite type. So what are the two types of conversationalist? You can be the informer, which means you provide information to the other person, or you can be the inquirer, which means you ask questions and you take an interest in the other person's information. So you've got two things: informer, inquirer. A successful conversation has a balance of people playing the role of the informer and the inquirer. It's much easier to be an informer. Most people are largely informers. Everyone has information on themselves or the world that they at least are interested in and can relay. The harder skill is to be an inquirer. So if you're able to be both the informer and the inquirer, no matter who you're speaking to, you're able to bring balance to the conversation. If you struggle and feel resistance towards the idea of being an inquirer, it helps to know that people really like it when you ask them questions about themselves and their interests. It doesn't happen that often for many people. So if you can just ask the right questions, they will love you for it because you made them feel knowledgeable and needed. And you benefit too as well. If you ask the right questions, you can learn something, which in the long run makes you a better conversationalist. The best conversationalists are the ones who know not only how to be adaptable in being both informer and inquirer, but know when to be them. Let me give you an example of assessing a person and then providing balance to their specific conversational needs. So you engage with conversation with someone, but they don't seem interested in you or what you have to say. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to talk to you, as they're still engaging with you with any questions that you're asking them. It just means that this person is more of an informer. This can occur with a variety of personality types: very young or very old people, people with busy or exciting lives, or people with problems with social skills tend to veer towards being categorized as an informer conversationalist. They just want to talk. And as a good conversationalist, we realize that in order to bring balance to that conversation with an informer, you need to become the inquirer. You ask questions, find out what they want to talk about, and learn from them. Another example: you meet someone and they ask you a question about something. Your answer immediately excites them, and they begin to ask you many more questions about that topic. You have to therefore adopt the role of, they have adopted the role of the inquirer. So in order to bring balance, what they need from you now is to become the informer. You don't waffle on too long about particular areas, and you allow them to request more detail or pivot to something else, which allows them to steer the conversation. Another example is that you meet someone and you both play the role of both informer and inquirer. Like a game of ping pong, you ask them a few questions and they answer them with concise information, and then they give you questions that you answer. You both bring balance to the conversation. And for me, this is my favorite type of conversation, as I get to be both informer and inquirer. Examples of bad balancing could be that you start talking to someone and this person is an informer. They talk about themselves and their interests, and they don't seem interested in what you have to say. This causes you to be frustrated and impatient with this person. You fail to recognize that they're just an informer, and you misread the situation, that they don't actually want to talk to you. Your frustration leads to you disregarding what they say and potentially change the conversation to orientate around something that actually you'd rather speak about. You fail to counterbalance the informer and the conversation shifts too far to the informer side. And then the other person doesn't feel heard and then the conversation just dies. Here's an additional example of poor balancing. You meet an inquirer. They ask you many questions about yourself and you don't know how to communicate as an informer. You either waffle on too long and take too much of the conversational balance, not allowing room for them to ask more questions, or you don't give enough information, making their job as an inquirer harder and harder until they give up. In all the examples that we've used so far, this has all been talking about the two types of conversationalists. They may be an informer or an inquirer, want more or less of each way, but fundamentally they want to converse. With that in mind, you also need to be aware of the non-conversationalists, which is basically people that don't want to talk to you. This means that when you first interact with someone, before you figure out if they're an informer or an inquirer, you need to figure out if they actually want to speak to you or not. It's impossible for an inquirer to be a non-conversationalist. If someone is asking you a question, they want to talk to you. So if you identify someone as an inquirer straight away, then you're all good. But in these first few minutes, you will need to figure out whether someone is an informer or they just don't want to speak to you. The easiest way to identify this is by the length of their answers. If they're not asking you questions, but are readily giving you information and have body language that is calm and situated towards you, they're most likely just an informer and they want to speak with you. If they give very short answers with very little information, that makes it hard for you to inquire into, and they have body language that is divided into multiple directions, they most likely just don't want to talk to you at that time. And that's fine. They don't hate you. They've probably just met you. They probably just have other things on their mind. And just let them go, and they will find you again if they want to speak to you. And if not, no worries. It's impossible to have a successful conversation with someone who doesn't want to have it in the first place. Thank you.